Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's album review. Brett, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, good. So we've had a request come in. This person has requested 3 albums,
Okay.
and has said that each one has an 80s feel to them. Obviously, been listening to your comments. You know that you're a big 80s fan.
Oh God.
So
Okay.
I can't find much info on this particular one. Can't find it on Wikipedia. So I'll share the screen. So we've got an album called Dog Years by The Night Game from 2021. So I'll ask you, but I'm sure the answer is no. Have you heard of The Night Game?
No.
Okay. So I don't know what to expect from this. The only thing we've been told is that it has an 80s feel to it. Kind of shortish album, 41 minutes, 44 seconds, 11 tracks on there, fairly standard. Don't really have much to say on it because I don't know anything about it. Do you know way, I don't know, kind of like that, not having a clue what to expect. I just hope it's not too heavy. I've got a feeling it won't be, but I don't know.
You never know. You never know. Surprises do happen.
So, yeah, what do you think? You looking forward to it? I always ask you that.
I've got to say yes now. It's been influenced from my comments about having a soft spot for 80s music. But yeah, not looking forward to it. Like I say, I do like sometimes discovering new music. New sounds, and anything you can take from it I can put into a playlist is always going to be plus, so there's opportunity for that. So let's see what it has to offer.
Yeah, we're going to head off and listen to it now. We're going to be back with you in just a sec. So we've now listened to the album. We're going to get straight into it. So track number 1 was called The Stilt Walker. My notes on this one were very American in terms of the whole setting, the whole lyrics, or the words that were being spoken. Guess it was kind of about life, kind of city life, but life in general. Quite an interesting intro. Definitely, like, not from what I remember of it, it was a song. It was just some weird kind of intro, but it was interesting. And it was by a woman as well, which is quite interesting because there's no women in this group, or not singing in it. So yeah, which I didn't know at the time.
Yeah, I don't know if there was a track later on with a woman singing. After, maybe when we get to it, if I've got some in my notes about
No,
that.
there is. There was one song. But that was
Sorry,
a
yeah,
guest
there was. Okay,
appearance.
yeah. Oh yeah, so the feature one, of course. Yeah, we'll get to that one. But anyway, back to the intro track. So I do like an intro song to an album. I don't know. I feel like, because when you're coming to listen to an album, you're there to listen to it in full. Really, you're not always there generally to listen to an album to listen to 1 or 2 songs. So I feel like it's nice that it has sort of like an intro. And normally I'd say it sets out the stall for the rest of the album, but this one I don't think it did. It's probably early doors, the experimental song, I would say, of the album, if you can really call it a song. Like I said, it was just talking and sounds and stuff. Very immersive, I put here. Very 80s in terms of the sounds and the news article and all that kind of thing from there. Kind of feel like it could have been in a movie. So yeah, I kind of liked it for what it was, but like I said, it was a real sort of curveball in terms of what I was going to expect from the album, apart from maybe the 80s feel from that.
So the next track, and the first real track, or kind of proper song, was I Feel Like Dancing. So I quite like the style of this. Kind of funky, definitely has some 80s elements to it. Quite a lot going on with the instrumentals. So yeah, quite a solid start to the album for me.
Yeah, I thought it was actually quite a strong opening. I obviously didn't know that at the time, but obviously looking back, thinking, yeah, actually, no, it probably was so 80s. I know I'll probably hear me say that a lot, probably throughout this sort of album as we go through it. But I felt there was so many sort of 80 cliches called as sign of sounds. It's a lot of instrumental stuff. We had like the drumming sound, just the whole vibe, wasn't it? But like call it kind of modern 80 stuff. So first time we now hear the main guy sort of singing. Again, I haven't got his name, didn't catch what his name was at all. Really good voice, really nice. Like I say, it's nothing that sort of blows you away, but it just sounds really nice, really good, really poppy, sort of head bopping as well. And it just sounded like a really sort of familiar, recognisable song. Obviously, it was completely original, but it just had, I said, because it's got that 80s feel, it just felt just very familiar. But yeah, very cliche 80s. Yeah, really liked it.
Track 3 was Magic Trick. Had a nice start to it. Then it suddenly got going. And again, that clear 80s feel to it. I was like, okay, I quite like this. And I think what I liked about it, I liked the contrast between the softly sung parts and then the lively parts. I thought the lively part particularly was very 80s, I guess because of the instrumentals. And I was actually really impressed by this song. This was a really good one.
Yeah, so the album keeps going quite well, really good. Again, like that start of it was, something a little bit different as well. So we definitely, and again, and I'm jumping ahead from other songs, will be variations through our bet shows from this track here. Felt a bit more modern at the start, but then as you said, yeah, the chorus became very 80s. And I think you're right, I think it's probably from the instrumentals and the background music. I put here kind of Genesis / Phil Collins kind of vibe. And again, I think there was that sort of drumming sounds as well. Found my head bopping more and more towards the end. Yeah, a really good, solid song.
Track 4 was Our Generation. It had an interesting style to it. There were some softly sung parts. It was a very sexual song. It was listenable. It did kind of feel a bit catchy. Had a kind of shouty chorus in a way, but in a very pop way. Not like when I say shouty chorus, like with some of this rock music that we've been doing. So yeah, this was okay.
Yeah, again, another sort of good song for the album. I think I've definitely preferred sort of the other two from there. It again felt very different. It wasn't sort of the same style we've had already, and yet it still keeps this sort of 80s feel going on as well. There's like the old school style of like with the voice sort of talking on the phone. But what I found really weird when I sort of picked up on the lyrics, like it had that sort of old style of like they were talking on the phone and stuff, but like talking about modern things. Like I think, for example, I put here, there was a bit of say, look, can you send me a photo? And I was feeling in the back of my head thinking, well, if this is, if they're talking like an old phone like that, you meant to like send a photo, I mean, like take a photo like a proper camera, go to like the chemist to get it developed and then post it off rather than, send it instantly on a modern phone. That's sort of where my head went with this song here. But again, sort of from halfway, head bopping, enjoying it. And yeah, only still feeling good things from this album so far.
The next track was Companion. So this was the only track that had a featured artist. I think her name was Ellie King. So I looked her up. So she's actually quite well known. She's on Wikipedia. She's won various awards and things like that. So yeah, I was kind of looking forward to this one. Different style of song, this one. Took a while for Ellie King to get involved in the song. She did eventually. And to be honest, I was disappointed by this one. Wasn't so keen on it. Had sort of quite loud vocal style from both of the singers. And I just felt this song didn't offer as much as the previous songs. The other songs were kind of a bit more, had different things going on, different elements to them. This felt a little bit, I don't know, just not as interesting. Didn't like it as much.
Oh, interesting. It's probably where, for like the first one, probably in a long time, we probably disagree. I thought this is my favourite song in the album so far. I think for me, because instantly when it started, I got sort of like a Robbie Williams kind of feel from it, and straight away I was sort of track to it in that sense. I thought he sang really, really well in it. I thought they complemented each other really well. Like you, I actually looked at her on Wikipedia just to see how big she was, or if she was a nobody, or what it was. And yeah, obviously she's quite well known. Sort of has very much from the country style music things. So she's toured about like the Chicks, Miranda Lambert, who we've talked about previously, as among ourselves. And yeah, like they were like a really good sort of middle of the road sort of pop song. He sang well, she sang well. And as I said, yeah, it's definitely been sort of my favourites so far. Simple verses, good chorus. And she reminds me actually, initially at first, like Anastasia, but just not as, because Anastasia's got such a strong, distinctive, powerful voice, hasn't she? So it wasn't like that, but, you know, still a strong singer. And then by the end, I was thinking more a bit like Alanis Morissette kind of feel with her singing voice as well. But yeah, for me, favourite of the song of the album so far.
Most disappointing for me.
Yeah, strange.
Okay. Next one was One Phone Call. Had a very 80s start to it, and I was like, okay, this is more like it after the previous song. I quite like this interesting style of song. Reminds me, sounds a bit weird, reminds me a little bit of Don Henley, The Boys of Summer, for some reason, even though it actually sounds nothing like it. I don't know, it just came into my head, and I just preferred this style of song to the previous one, and this was a little bit more like maybe some of the previous ones in a way. But yeah, I quite like this one.
Yeah, so I also like this one as well. I put a little asterisk next to that one. I've put here, I probably get the Don Henley thing, because I've put here there's that sort of country sort of feel to it. Now, I don't know if that was because I was then influenced from the previous song, even though I didn't sing that country before, but because of the singer. And I don't know if that played more of a mind part of me there. But it could explain why you probably prefer this one as well, if it did have that sort of country feel to it. I say that, but it's also got that sort of modern 80s side to it as well. And again, I've just been really impressed with all the songs so far on the album. This is another one that is definitely up there as one of my favourites on the album.
Next up was Hurt So Good. I found this one quite low key. It's an okay song. I just felt it was lacking the bite that most of the other songs have. It just is a little bit bland, maybe, for me.
Yeah, so this one sort of started a bit more slow, a bit more emotional, kind of ballad sounding, but wasn't quite like a proper ballad. But it then does sort of again, don't want to try and say upbeat, but it went a bit faster than it started, and we had this sort of 80s synthetic kind of sounds and sound and voice as well. I feel like it could be in a little bit better potentially, but as a whole, I still think it was another really good sort of song on the album. And again, it has been a little bit different from what we've had previously already. So that's it. Even though not catchy as some of the other ones, I still think it was really good.
And the next track was Dancing in Heaven. So this seemed like it was another low key song, although I felt this one sounded a lot better than the previous track, which was also very kind of like, well, relatively soft. This one just felt very emotional and a lot more powerful than the previous track. It almost sounded a bit like bagpipes going on at one point as well. I actually quite like this song. This is a pretty good one.
Yeah, so again, we had this sort of really sort of slow, meaningful, emotional ballad style, and I thought maybe it's just going to be like the previous song and actually change and go a bit more synthetic 80s on it. But it didn't. This kind of stayed that same tone throughout. And I really feel sort of the pain and loss in the sort of lyrics and what was sort of being sung as well. So it was nice to actually have a full-on sort of slow ballad kind of song. And you're right, yeah, we did hear bagpipes. Wasn't expecting that. And you'd think, how would that really work with all this stuff here? But it kind of did. I don't know how or why, but it worked really well with it. So yeah, a really nice, be it a sad song. And this would be tie, I think, yeah, for being one of my favourites on the album.
The next track was Beautiful Stranger. This one straight away after the previous two was a much more kind of funky song and very 80s feel to it. This one's okay, but I found it to be quite sort of one tempo, which made it a little bit boring maybe compared to some of the others, which felt a little bit more out there, a little bit more interesting, more. There was more going on, but this one, yeah, didn't quite have that.
Yeah, I haven't got a lot on these next few songs we're going to talk about. But yeah, definitely here. So we've gone back to that sort of real 80s vibe, almost like sort of like the start of the album after having that previous sort of slower song. And all I could just write here sort of 80s synth sounds. Really, really good. Another, again, a good, enjoyable song for the album, but it maybe just wasn't sort of as emotional as the previous song and just maybe not as catchy and as fun as some of the previous ones to that there. But definitely nothing wrong with it. Just what I would call, I say a lot, solid album track.
So next up was UFO. This was kind of a bit of a speaky song, sort of almost kind of like talking, singing. So not one of my favourites. But I am enjoying the range of songs on the album, which we'll probably talk more about at the end.
Yeah, that's the kind of exactly sort of the same notes sort of put here. Talking vibe, at least there's against something a totally different angle again from them, but still keeping to the same sort of, but still different at the same time. For put in brackets, could be like space rock, because they're talking about UFOs and just how that kind of sort of eerie kind of trippy feel to it. But again, I really, really like this one. I said it's just in a different sense compared to the other tracks I preferred as well. So yeah, really good one, but in a different sense, just maybe not as good as the others, but I'm really pleased it's definitely on the album.
Which means the last song, it was A Postcard from the City of Angels. I thought it sounds quite interesting, I suppose, kind of backers getting involved. It's pretty decent. Not a bad way to end the album. I mean, it's a fairly kind of average song on the album, but, decent enough.
Yeah, for me, again, I made the mistake of presuming stuff. So as soon as I saw like the title of the track, and because we had a previous like that Dancing Heaven one, thinking, okay, I think this might be another slow ballad to maybe bring the album to the end. So I already put down my head, and obviously it wasn't quite like that. So kind of maybe felt a little bit disappointed in my own self, but I said that's my own fault with that there. But actually, this turned out to be, again, a good, solid album track, and actually was a nice way to end the album. I think almost had a little mixture of sort of everything we've had proofs from the album. There's a little bit, I think, talking bits. It had sort of a slow bit, the upbeats, boppy bits as well. And of course, throughout this track and with all the others, that sort of generic sort of 80s kind of feel as well. So maybe go back and listen to that one again. I might have a different mindset, not thought differently from the start. But yeah, good way to end.
Okay. So if we're going to now sum everything up. So yeah, obviously we're going through this. I was going through the songs. I'm like, oh, it has quite a lot of, has an 80s feel to it. It was only then when I realised, of course, that this was recommended to us because of the fact it had an 80s feel to it. I forgot about that. So that makes perfect sense. So for me, I enjoyed it. It was good. Some good tracks on there. It's just some kind of pop music. You can never go too wrong with pop music. At least for me. Anything that's like too in one direct, like too heavy and whatever, or it wasn't like that. It wasn't any kind of extreme. It was just it's this kind of like, I don't know, blend of 80s style mixed in with, I guess, more modern style. It's kind of had this sort of combination. I thought it worked quite well. I like the fact there was quite a lot of variation to the songs. Some of the songs felt a little bit more experimental. Other songs, not so much. So some slower songs, some faster songs, parts of songs that were slow, and then parts of songs were built up. So it had quite a lot going on for it. So yeah, this gets a thumbs up from me. Quite liked it overall. What
That's a
about you?
big compliment for the album for getting a thumbs up from you, I guess. Yeah, I'll put it out there. I really enjoyed this album. Again, with all the sort of points that you made there, for such a short album as well, to have as much of that sort of variation and there's stuff going on with the tracks there. And as we went on, I was looking back on this, and as we talked about it just now, like there wasn't like a bad track on it. Even the ones you said you didn't like as much, you know, they were still good songs. I would happily listen to any of these songs individually on their own. That had to put the one sort of negative, and it has happened quite a lot recently where, again, you probably haven't got the one, even though there was standout songs that I really liked, they weren't really that memorable. I think you have to listen to a fair few times maybe to sort of really get into them. But I would have to say, and I did try to look, even though I can stream any song and have on one, to actually buy this album, which I think about it, like, I don't think I've ever kind of said that on all these album reviews that we've done on here. I know there's been previously when we've talked before we started filming stuff, I brought sort of a couple albums and ones that we listened to. I can't remember if we did them on the channel or not, but this would be one of them. But unfortunately, I couldn't get the album. They've sold out like hard copies of CDs and cassettes as well. They actually produced cassettes. But like I said, I can listen to the album anytime soon. But I thought I wanted to have a nice sort of hard copy, nice to have some in the car and stuff. So that's how much I really enjoyed it, and I will 100% be listening to it again. And I've already listened to a couple of other stuff by the Night Game just to see if the other stuff was kind of like this. And there is that same sort of vibe to it. It didn't feel as 80s as this, but it's definitely still very listenable stuff. So is that like 2 thumbs up for me to sort of say? Is that what it sounds like?
You need to show your toes as well, your big toe.
Yeah, well, I've been saying that for a real blow me away sort of album. So at the moment, yeah, you can have 2 thumbs up, and I would buy if I could get it. And yeah, we'll definitely listen to it again for sure.
There you go. Okay, so thank you for the request. It was a good one.
Is it? Yeah.
And we'll see you again soon for the next one. Keep the requests coming, guys. Take care. Goodbye.